Time is an irreplaceable asset that we have, and until we have complete ownership and idea of where our time is going, how we structure our days and our weeks, then we're going to be left asking ourselves, I can't find the time, or where do I find the time? Now, with the introduction of your training multiple times in the gym, now you're meal preparing, you're grocery shopping, you're getting steps, all of the corresponding activities and targets that you have now have to be infused into your current weekly schedule. And reorganizing some of this is going to be essential, and or cutting off the distractions and the unessential. Bruce Lee said it's not about the daily increase, but the daily decrease. We need to hack away at the unessential and focus on our priorities, because we are still going to be competing with other interests in our life, such as our work, our family time, social time, other hobbies or commitments that we have, appointments and errands, whatever it may be. These are still going to exist in our life, and we need to learn to marry our new training and fitness lifestyle into this. Now, we have all confessed at some point that I don't have enough time or I can't make it work. But this is a rejection of, one, prioritizing your own health and your training at the expense of other activities, maybe not even in your self-interest. And two, a misunderstanding of where your time is actually going, which is why I recommend that before you actually put this calendar together, I would actually run a time audit. How much time do you actually spend on your phone? How much time do you actually spend watching media that doesn't actually engage you or develop you in some way, or scrolling on Instagram or whatever it may be? Activities that aren't necessarily helping with your own development. These are the first things that are going to be cut off and substituted with activities that are going to be more health promoting. See where your time is leaking, and I guarantee you that you're going to have some realizations around how much time you actually do have in your calendar. In most cases, if an activity or habit isn't scheduled in, you're far more likely to bail out on yourself. I've seen this repeatedly where a training session hasn't been scheduled, or grocery or meal prep hasn't been scheduled, and it just hasn't been done because it's been superseded by another activity, another priority, when in reality, this is where you just get stuck in this cycle of not prioritizing yourself. So yes, we'll do our best to fit in all the integral components of your week, but if it comes to a point where you have to choose between one activity or the other, choose the one that's going to empower your health and your training and your progress, because that's what you're here for, okay? Put healthy boundaries in place so that you can have the habits and give them the time and the energy required in your week to make success inevitable. I'm going to take you into an example Google Calendar of how I would structure this and layer this, where I would position your training sessions, your meal prep, and all of this, so that you have an idea of how to put all the pieces that you currently have together. Okay, I have a clear Google Calendar here, and now let's populate this with our most important activities. The first thing that you'll notice is that I've got some preset calendars, which I took the liberty of creating prior to this recording. And on the left here, I've got friends and family, hobbies, nutrition, recovery. You can basically categorize this into professional, personal, social, health and fitness. That makes it easy to color coordinate and separate the different categories in your life. This is how you can create those calendars or categories. You click on this, create your calendar, and from here you can name it, for example, work, personal, and you can also allocate a color to it as well. And this is what I've just done prior to this. So I have these separate categories here. The first thing that we're going to implement is our reoccurring activities. And we're going to start with work. So starting at 9, click, drag that down to 5. So I'm just going to use a conventional Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Work, and 9 to 5 p.m. We can add our location. Just say work at NASA. And this is going to be recurring. So we're going to repeat this every weekday, Monday to Friday. And we're going to choose the work. This will just color coordinate it based on the preset color that I chose for that calendar. Save that. And now I've got my work in there as well. And you can adjust this to your own hours. I can enable and disable that since I have a separate calendar for my work-related activities. The next thing we can put in is actually just the start and end of our day. So what time are we waking up? What time are we sleeping? And then we can fill in everything in between, including whether we want to train in the morning or in the afternoon. This might seem like an unconventional inclusion to your calendar, but I do recommend that you have your sleep and wake times in there, because it allows you to get into the structure of consistent times and getting stable with your circadian rhythm. So no more erratic hours, up at 11 and then some days being in bed by 9 because you have to be at 5. Let's just get it consistent within an hour either way is a good rule of thumb. Consistent and stable circadian rhythm and sleep wake cycle. So what I've got here is I've already put this in previously. So I'm going to enable that. And I've got that under recovery. We have our sleep at 9:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. 5 times a week. And I also recognize that many people like to sleep in on the weekend. So I've opted for a later waking time with a later sleeping time on Friday and Saturday. The way that I've done this is I've just made the Monday to Friday a reoccurring, and I've made Saturday and Sunday a separate event and made that reoccurring. Now that we basically see our work, we have the time that we're literally awake, we can start to populate this with different activities. So let's just start from the morning. I think now's a good time to position when do we want to train. And I've got this here, 4 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I put one on Saturday so that you're not rushed for time in the morning. Okay. And that can be like a longer session or your hardest session. And then I've also included our walk or our steps as our additional form of activity, since that's going to be very important for your fat loss. And let's say you're doing a run club on Sunday, which is something that I do. That also goes in the activity calendar. What can we put in next? Our nutrition. This will include our meal times, our grocery shopping, our meal prep times. You can see this. I've got meal prep twice per week. In this example, Wednesday evening and Sunday midday. Put your meal times in designated times in the day. It doesn't have to be to the minute, but half an hour either way. Make sure you're having a meal at that time and it's structured, just so that you're not having long bouts where you are not consuming food, where your energy can crash. You can get your drop in blood sugar. This is very important, especially if you say training in the afternoon after work. You know, if you've skipped your lunch meal, that's a long time since you've eaten, and your resiliency to turn up is going to be greatly diminished. So, based on this already, I already have structure and appointments with myself for when I'm going to do these activities. They're scheduled into the calendar, and now I just have to adhere to it. There's a lot of negative space, and the reality is there is time to train, right? Assuming that you have a program with enough frequency that is, adjusted to your lifestyle, there's time there. Of course, this is not complete because we want to put in other activities outside of our work and our fitness. So let's say our hobbies, you can put that in. That could be anything from any creative pursuit that you have, any form of learning. You're learning a language, right? But do something, I recommend you do something that is genuinely developing you in some way. So not just use hobbies as time to just meander on social media or do something that is draining you, right? Again, time is finite and precious, and you can use this as a crucial time to develop yourself. The quality of your leisure time is highly influential on your development as a person, like how well-rounded you are. Use that time wisely. Next is we can put in our social time, so family and friends, according to your own social calendar. You know, those things are important to respect as well. This isn't just about getting organized with work and training and living like a hermit, okay? Schedule in the other meaningful activities in your life so that you can also see that you're not robbed from those things either. Appointments, I've got travel time here as well. And of course, any additional check-ins, I've put, Coach Jaka midweek check-in and an end of week check-in. Put those in your calendar as well as part of your coaching experience. Now you can make as much of this as a reoccurring activity as well. So if I scroll to the next week, most of it will be there. And really you're only changing up whatever social activities you have or appointments that you have coming around. That looks a lot better, a lot more organized than just entering a week completely unsure of what you should be doing each day. All right. As I mentioned before, time is a finite asset. And if you respect your time and you want to be grateful for your time, then learn how you're using it and use it to your fullest potential, okay? Use it to get smarter, stronger, to be more educated. Now that I've showed you how to organize your Google Calendar, your next step is to put this together for yourself. So take the principles or even the template if this applies to you and plug it into your calendar. Run the time audit of what you're currently doing, see where you are bleeding time or what can be substituted, and then now you can reform that and integrate it into this new lifestyle you're going to put in place. Structure creates predictability and reduces decision fatigue. Once you put this together, I want you to send me a screenshot of your week so that I know that you've been as detailed as required with your calendar and that you have a better understanding of your time.